Welcome to the high place again. I'm still here. In Las Vegas or Henderson. Yeah, changed my return to the East Coast again. A couple weeks. Got things to help my mother with. Still health issues and stuff. So lucky that I'm able to do that. Blessed. So scheduled to go back on the 26th now. So a couple more, maybe one more time. I'm gonna come out here and pray. And I was thinking on the way up, there's a spot that I stop. There's 5 or 6 spots that I stop. But the first stop where you can see into the bowl and kind of see the whole bowl. And I stopped there, and I was thinking, I would normally want to and normally would explore, more and more of not necessarily the bowl area or the back wall, or there's a wall to the northwest, and there's just, this area is massive. It's hard to describe how big it is, but it seems, you could hike, a good, day, particularly north. I'm not so sure about west, but probably that way. Yeah, you could you could hike a day in almost any direction, and yeah, you might cross a road or a wash that's a road, but not run into anything. But this area to the north, from the bowl north, is pretty spectacular, and it's a big area. I got a lot of bees today because I used a little bit more agua de Florida, and so I got a lot of bees today. So while I'm talking, I might give them some water or grab my sage over there to help keep them at bay. It's a bunch. A lot of sign today coming up. Wow, a lot of sign. I know, I smell like I would have Florida because I got some on me. It's not smart. Saw the Guardians out not too long after I got out of the car. The big crows, the big ravens. And then I saw, and they circled and came and said hi and whatnot. And then on the way up the wash, on the approach, I saw what must have been a hawk, because it's like 3, 4, 5 miles out, and seeing it just circle up here in the high place, circling the high place, riding the thermal, or at least the wind that kind of comes up in the back here from the north. And then when I got to the outer temple and to the Ganesha temple down below, I always bring sweets, RX bars, for the little people, and the spirits of this place, and to say thank you, and ask for protection and blessings. And spider medicine. And when I was at the Ganesha temple, praying to Ganesha, oh jeez, what is that spider? A big raven, crow, again, I don't know the difference or which one, landed on the altar, the outer temple altar, and ate some of the offerings. And I was really, really pleased with that. Those signs. And he was gorgeous, like one of the most gorgeous, big crow ravens I've seen, massive, and jet black, and really shiny, well fed, and he was smart because he was kind of standoffish. I was, a good 20 feet away or so, 30 feet, and I kept talking to him, it's okay, I put that there for you, you're more than welcome, thank you, thank you, very pleased and humbled that you accept my offerings, that kind of thing. And like he jumped around, looked at me, and then he ate some of the pieces. He jumped up on the altar and ate some of the pieces, that was just great. I mean, I've never seen that clear a sign at one of the altar places. And then he took a big chunk in his mouth, and he didn't eat it right away, because all the other ones, like the 3 or 4 other ones that he ate, he like just gulped right down, but he held that one. And I knew what he was going to do. He was going to take it to his partner, or she was going to take it to her partner. And sure enough, jumped and swooped down and took off. And I'm sure, maybe babies, I don't know. But then I've seen him come back down below. So they probably clean that altar off. And that makes me very pleased. Giving water to the bees, I'm hoping they're pleased. Thinking on the way up, I've been talking about some pretty heavy things, and I could keep doing that. I could talk about things like, pathogenic priming and viral immune escape and things like that. What looks to be a potential catastrophe next fall, next flu season, who knows? Come on, guys. And I could talk about the fact that I think it's pretty undeniable that we live a hope. We live under imperial authoritarian regime. We live under tyranny. And you can deny it, but you can look at the simple fact of how many military bases we have around the world, and 800, and how much of the annual budget is earmarked for the military-industrial complex, surveillance, state, security, Anyway. But that's not what came through or wants to come through. For me, it became apparent about halfway up that I should talk about HANUMAN-ji. And of course, it's my experience of HANUMAN, because my experience of the divine is not going to be yours. They're all unique. And that's pretty spectacular. So, everyone has their own gift in their own way, I think, at least that's been my experience, and that seems to be how, I feel into these things. And for me, I've been, feeling into my connection to the divine, my connection to Hanuman, for years now. And every day, every ceremony, every, aspect of remembering, I learn more and more. That's the way it should be, right? So part of my path has been, the Red Road and the way of the Lakota and Dakota peoples. And I'm certainly, I don't claim to be a sun dancer. I've observed Sundance, but I've never sun danced. But I've been learning these ways through, primarily two teachers for years. Better than a decade, I guess. Maybe going on 15 years, I'm not sure. But that's when I first, I think, through that cosmovision, through that system, through those traditional ways, I learned, I think, the concept of the Intercessor. And maybe it was in a book, Frank Fool's Crow, probably. And requiring, we can't approach God directly, wakatanka, you need a stepping stone. And, for many people, the stepping stone, particularly in the ancient cultures, the indigenous cultures, the stepping stone was, the medicine man and their ceremonies. They had 7 primary sacraments that were ceremonies, dances given to them via white buffalo cavalry. But the medicine person was the intercessor to Great Spirit. And it's kind of the way in Hinduism and Bhakti Yoga, that we have a deity that we focus upon. And after a while, that deity, maybe it focuses upon us, but there seems to be a union, a yoga, where you mix with the deity and become one with the deity. And but that particular deity, in the example of Hanuman, he's the great servant of Ram, great servant of Sita, great servant of Lakshman. And so for me, Hanuman became my intercessor, my stepping stone to Ram. And we'll go into the whole story with Lefty stepping into that mix, that energetic mix, and then exemplifying Hanuman. A lot of stories like that. But I think it's important in terms of understanding my approach to Ram is I have an intercessor, I have a stepping stone. Because I try and understand Hanuman, who is just another name of the unnamable, but he has characteristics that have been exemplified in like the Ramayana, and things like that. So we could understand, approach, because you can approach, Hanuman in that way. Ram is a whole different ballgame. It's kind of like the natives when they talk about Great Spirit, like it's unknowable, it's really how do you approach the unknowable, except so traits and things like that, characteristics onto something tangible, realistic in this realm, I guess is the best way to put it. Human characteristics, stone characteristics, trees characteristics, plant, thin, fur-legged ones, two-legged, four-legged. Great mountains, deep jungles, the great forests, star nations, those characteristics. And I needed a way to understand a context to understand a context to understand what was happening to me. What was my life? What is this place? What is this realm? And the more that I worked with Grandma medicine and all the other medicines, there became an understanding, but a visceral experience, so like a muscle memory, if you will, understanding of the divine, what I call the divine frequency. So when I talk about Hanuman comes through, this divine frequency, and in the medicine space. Maybe not in the full force of the variation, but maybe a little bit after, or maybe at the peak, depending upon how difficult your work is. But when it opens. And ayahuasca is, in that instance, the intercessor. I needed a place to put my grief when I lost Lefty. And I needed a place to put my grief when I lost Richard. And I needed a place to put my grief, about, all the things that I regretted in my life, the people I've hurt, the animals that I've hurt, all the wrong things that I've done. And I can go on that, we all can. It's almost like a masochism, a narcissism as well. But I also needed a place to be able to contextualize this. The great love. Transcendent love. The love that connected to that place, like in ceremony. The love that's so apparent here, And so I then identified with that current of energy, because it was just, it is, it's everything. was thinking, like, it's no wonder we can't remember our past lives. It would be too much. The body, the ego couldn't contain it, couldn't hold it, couldn't stand it. Because you imagine, I imagine about the losses, like Lefty and Richard, and many others whom I love. And multiply that by 1,000, 10,000. Wow. Impossible to hold that. You would be, instantaneously insane. The grief of the world, the sorrow of the world, the trauma of the world. Because the world holds all that, right? The Great Mother Earth holds that. And our Great Mother Earth holds, sublime, ecstatic connection with Hanuman, with Ram, with the divine. That which is like unnameable, unknowable. And so that balances it. Like, you wouldn't be able to contain or hold that. Your heart would burst. Burst either way, I suppose. But getting back to being able to contextualize those things, great sorrow, great grief, and then the great joy and the great love. I had to contextualize those in a way that I could carry, and for me that was via Hanuman, my intercessor. And Lefty became that. There was this dance. Sita And that connection I could at that point drape characteristics, that which is unknowable, that which is unnameable, effulgent, undeniable. I could take that and I could drape characteristics on it. And the characteristics that I draped on it were the characteristics of Hanuman, my intercessor. Again, intercessor being that which helps you understand the ununderstandable, the unknowable. And so, Hanuman exemplifies service. Great servant of Ram, great servant of Sita, great servant of Lakshman, Jai-Hanuman-ji, forever and ever and ever, Jai-Hanuman-ji, Sita Ram. And those characteristics then, you could say, mirror, drape me. So the reason why I'm such a devotee, and unashamedly and unabashedly so, and I know I sound crazy, and that's fine, because better to be crazy in a profound society, I guess. Anyway, I don't want to go back into negative. So this idea of serving the beloved, serving my beloved, serving Ram, serving Sita, serving Lakshman, and their characteristics, and the characteristics of that configuration, the divine configuration. So for me, it's I identify so strongly with being of service to those whom I love. Ike, my mother, Dana, my teachers, my friends, my loved ones, my acquaintances. And I'm learning to do that with enemies. But primarily, those closest to me. And I serve them. And I am honored to be of service. And I will carry that nature and that service to the end of my days. And I pray that I can carry that nature and that service beyond the end of my days. And I feel that I have. I feel like, we come into this life with a lot of things that we aren't aware of, obviously, but gravitate towards that which, perhaps served us so well in the past lives. Our allies, our cosmic family. So it's my great honor to serve. And it is my great honor to call myself a servant. And that configuration might at one level seem self-righteous and maybe a limiting belief system. But it is a belief system, and as well as an experiential system that I accept. And it identifies me, and I identify with it. So it's my great honor. I was also thinking, like, there's so many paths and so many ways for people to serve with their gifts. You can be an ayahuasquero, you can be a curandero, you can be a tabaquero, you can be, in the peyote way, the peyote church. You can, work with the Niños Santos, the mushroom spirits. You can be a Christian, Muslim, Jew, indigenous cosmologies, organized religion, all these things. You can exemplify and express your gifts in any way, shape, or form, and even they don't even have to, get wrapped in spirituality. It can be you cook well, and you put a lot of love into it. Maybe you're a rolfer, maybe you're an artist, you're a healer in the allopathic world. The expression of your particular expression of divinity. If you identify it. And for me, so I express via I'm a Hanuman-jero. Ayahuasquero, Hanuman-jero, so that's my thing, I would never call myself a shaman, or even have a hard time calling myself a healer. Campesito. But I can call myself a Hanuman devotee, Hanuman-jero, and that works. And now is the time for prayer. Now is the time. We're here for such a short period of time, and so many blessings, and this is such a rich and fertile time, rich and fertile field, interesting times, Baba Ram Das Maharaj would say. And you know, I'm very grateful for the expression, you know, that became available to me. You know, for a long time, you know, many prayers, but you know, bits and pieces of certain prayers really stick. And you know, one of them is the, you know, teach me to pray thyself in me. You know, that ancient prayer that Archbishop, his name Shamre, and then teach me to perform service through me, which I added. And you know, I want that to be my life. You know, it is my life. It cannot be my life, but more and more, again, this going back, you know, to the idea that I was expressing in the beginning of, you know, learning more and more, you know, characteristics of the intercessors in your life, and you know, fleshing out, if you will, the story and the mythology, you know, and the characteristics of that, you know, because you know, on the other side we know, or we don't know, you know, great mystery. So I was very, you know, as much as I want to go back to the East Coast, I have things to do there, you know, I miss Ike, I miss Dana, I miss my friends, my brothers, my sisters, you know, in terms of the communities, the spiritual paths, path that I'm on, teachers. But I'm blessed to be able to come up here again and pray. You know, it's a beautiful day. I got a little late start. It's still beautiful, not too hot, you know, just right. Maybe mid-60s. We got the bees, a lot of winged medicine. You know, the brujos, the ravens, the crows, the hawks. Wow, just, you know, absolutely astonishing signs. You know, so I'm very grateful, honored, and humbled by those signs. And that's what recharges me, you know, coming out here, aside from like getting out from under the EMF and you know, the repetition of the prayers, you know, at all the different stations, and you know, offering the sacraments, you know, and the gifts, you know, the sweets to the little people and the spirits of this place, and you know, charging up, you know, my Bhakta Anjaneya, you know, charging up my Kavacha and my, you know, Mala, and charging myself, you know, because I did, you know, I had a rough night last night, couldn't sleep, I just, you know, I just felt sick, and I felt sick even coming out, but like, I know it's like you just gotta go out, get out, fresh air, pray, and you know, it typically lifts me right up out of any funk or not feeling well or whatnot. It really, the energy here is really pure, you know, really clean, and so there's this alignment, you know, that just comes and happens, and I'm very appreciative of that. And that's that alignment, you know. When I learned how to work with that and identify that in ceremony, you know, it connects all these different aspects of the the story that I create. And a lot of times we, on these paths, on this path, talk about like, it's detrimental to like get caught in your story, like, and there's a truth to that. We're talking about like the obsessive, compulsive, narcissistic, software loop that you get stuck in, and that's takes a lot of energy and discernment and skill to like get out of those things sometimes. But when you're able to, and you're able to then access, maybe a different realm, a different energy. For me, it's energy. It connects all these things, and it makes perfect sense. You've all had that moment, I'm sure, of, like, it's just a satori. Everything makes sense, and we can't remember all those things. Obviously, we can only bring back so much, but we can remember that we need to remember. Just remembering that is huge. It was for me, is for me. Just remembering that there's that HANUMAN-ji. And that service and that love, that incredible, indescribable love energy. So I might get heavy sometimes and talk about some crazy shit. Be careful. Very dangerous times. I think next fall is going to be really dangerous. I hope and pray that between now and next fall, some things will flower in the realm of sovereignty, freedom, and justice, impeccability, consciousness. But still be prepared and be vigilant. I serve in that capacity, in all those capacities, in the spectrum that is required, I serve. In the spectrum that is presented to me in terms of the requirements, I serve. And I wish I could serve more. I certainly could. But I'm serving my mother, serving my family, serving Ike and Dana, serving a wider community via these prayers. Chankuluta Ognama Wanielo Yo Tunka Shilaya Peda Maya Yellow Hey Chanupa Kile Uwaya Chewaki Yellow Tunka Shilaya Peda Maya Yellow Hey Chankuluta Ognama Wanielo Yo Tunka Shilaya Peda Maya Yellow Hey Chanupa Kile Uwaya Chewaki Yellow Tunka Shilaya Peda Maya Yellow Hey. Great servant of Ram, great servant of Sita, great servant of Lakshman, Jai-Hanuman-ji, forever and ever and ever. Jai-Hanuman-ji, Sita Ram.